The city gates are still open behind you, and that is the part no one will understand later. You could leave right now. You could board a ship tonight and sail toward safety, toward a longer life, toward every reasonable argument your own friends are currently making in the room behind you. You are Cato, the last Roman general still standing against Caesar after the catastrophic defeat at Thapsus, the last significant voice of the Republic, still refusing to bend toward a man who has already conquered nearly everyone else willing to resist him. Tonight in the city of Utica, you are the final obstacle standing between Caesar and complete uncontested power over Rome. Feel the weight of that position for a moment, the strange, almost unbearable loneliness of being the very last person still holding a line that everyone else has already abandoned. Your fellow senators have fled. Your allies have surrendered, one after another, accepting whatever pardon Caesar generously offers them, choosing survival over principle, choosing the comfortable peace of submission over the difficult, lonely dignity of continued resistance. You do not blame them entirely. You understand, with the clear-eyed honesty that has defined your entire life, exactly why most reasonable people eventually choose survival. But you also understand with equal clarity that you are not most people, and that the principles you have spent your entire life defending mean nothing at all if you abandon them the moment defending them actually costs you something real. Your son enters the room where you are sitting, his face tight with barely controlled fear, and he begs you not for the first time tonight to reconsider, to accept whatever terms Caesar might eventually offer, to choose life over this strange, stubborn insistence on principle. You look at him, and something in your chest tightens, the particular pain of watching someone you love beg you toward a choice you know you cannot actually make. Epictetus, not yet born, would one day teach that we must distinguish carefully between what belongs to us and what does not, and that true freedom lies entirely in that distinction. You do not have his exact words yet, but you have lived something remarkably close to his philosophy your entire life. The unwavering belief that your own integrity belongs entirely to you, regardless of what external circumstances eventually surround it. Caesar can conquer your city. Caesar can conquer your allies, your armies, your entire faltering cause. Caesar cannot conquer your judgment about what kind of man you choose to remain while everything else collapses around you. You explain this to your son as gently as you can manage, though gentleness feels almost impossible tonight, given the gravity of what you're actually trying to communicate to him. You tell him that accepting Caesar's mercy would mean accepting Caesar's right to grant it, acknowledging him as a legitimate authority with the power to forgive a free Roman citizen for the simple act of defending the Republic. You refuse to grant him that acknowledgement, even now, even with every practical argument weighing heavily against you. This is not stubbornness for its own sake, you try to explain, though you can see in your son's eyes that he is not yet entirely convinced. This is the final, irreducible act of resistance still available to you, refusing to let Caesar's victory include your own voluntary submission to his judgment, his mercy, his ultimate authority over your continued existence. You think of every Roman senator before you who compromised their principles for survival, who told themselves that surviving today preserved the possibility of resisting tomorrow, and you recognize, with the particular clarity that arrives only at the very end of a long principled life, that tomorrow rarely actually arrives the way people hope it will. Compromise, once accepted, has a way of becoming permanent, disguised as a temporary, reasonable concession. You have watched this happen to too many honorable men across your lifetime to believe it would somehow work differently for you. Your friends gather that evening, the few who remain sharing a final meal together, and you notice them watching you carefully throughout dinner, searching your face for any sign of the decision they suspect you have already made. You discuss philosophy that night, deliberately, calmly, as though this were simply any other evening rather than what everyone in the room understands it actually is. You speak about the nature of the soul, about whether it survives the body's eventual death, engaging the conversation with genuine intellectual curiosity rather than performed calm, because you have spent decades training your mind to remain genuinely engaged with truth, regardless of how difficult the surrounding circumstances happen to be. One of your friends, watching you closely, quietly removes your sword from the room without your immediate notice. A small, desperate attempt to delay what he clearly suspects you intend to do. You notice its absence almost immediately, and you ask for it back. Your voice calm but unmistakably firm, the voice of a man whose decision has already been made and will not be altered by well-intentioned interference. Your friend hesitates, clearly torn between loyalty and desperate love, and you remind him gently but unmistakably that a man who would deny you the means of your own choice has effectively decided to control your life against your explicit will. An irony almost too painful to fully articulate given everything you have spent this evening trying to explain about freedom and submission. He returns the sword, his hands shaking slightly, and you thank him, genuinely understanding completely the impossible position your decision has placed him in. Alone again later that night, you pick up a copy of Plato's dialogue concerning the immortality of the soul. Reading it slowly, carefully, the way a man reads something that genuinely matters to him, rather than something he is merely passing time with. You think about Socrates, centuries before you, who faced his own unjust death sentence with remarkable calm, refusing the opportunity to escape Athens despite considerable encouragement from friends who believed escape was both possible and reasonable. You understand Socrates now in a way you only theoretically understood him during your earlier, more comfortable years of study. Principle you recognize tonight is not actually principle at all if it only survives when survival happens to be convenient. It either holds during exactly this kind of impossible night, or it was never genuinely principle in the first place, merely comfortable philosophy performed during easier circumstances that never actually demanded anything significant from you. You finish reading and you sleep for a few hours, your rest surprisingly peaceful, given everything surrounding it, because you have already made your decision, and a decision genuinely made, you have discovered across your difficult life, brings a strange settled calm that uncertainty itself can never actually provide. You wake before dawn. The city around you remains quiet. Caesar's approaching army still gathering somewhere beyond the walls. The final hours of whatever remains of the old republic, slowly, irreversibly running out. You think of every Roman value you have spent your entire life defending: liberty, dignity, the principle that power should always remain accountable to law rather than existing above it, and you understand with complete clarity that tonight is not actually about defeating Caesar militarily, since that possibility disappeared with your army's defeat at Thapsus. Tonight is about something else entirely, proving, through your own final choice, that those values were never simply convenient political positions you held while circumstances favored holding them. They were genuinely who you are, tested now under the most severe circumstances available to test them, and found, you intend to prove through your own conduct, completely unshaken. You think of every person who will eventually hear about how you faced this particular night, and you recognize that your actual death matters far less than the example your death provides. A demonstration that submission to tyranny is never actually inevitable, that a single person's unwavering principle can remain genuinely uncompromised even when every external circumstance has been thoroughly, completely defeated. This is not despair, you understand clearly, watching the first hints of dawn light beginning to touch the horizon outside your window. This is the final, complete expression of a freedom that Caesar's entire victorious army was never actually capable of conquering, regardless of how thoroughly they conquered everything else surrounding it. If you're listening to this and currently facing your own impossible circumstance, some situation where every reasonable voice around you is urging compromise, urging surrender, urging the comfortable path of least resistance, know that Cato once stood exactly where you might be standing now, the very last person still holding a principled line everyone else had already abandoned. This is why Severus Stoic exists, to bring you these difficult, uncompromising chapters of Stoic history, not simplified into easy comfort, but honest about exactly what genuine principle sometimes actually costs. If this story reached something true in you, subscribe to Severus Stoic so more of these journeys continue finding their way to you exactly when you need them most. Leave a comment below and tell me about a time you held a principle even when every practical voice around you suggested compromising it instead, and what that particular choice ultimately cost you or ultimately taught you. Your comments help this channel grow, and they help other people recognize they are not alone in choosing difficult, uncompromising integrity over easier, more comfortable submission. Cato stood as the very last man still resisting Caesar, completely alone, completely defeated militarily, and yet completely unmistakably himself until his own final deliberate choice. Remember this. The next time you find yourself the last person still holding a principled line everyone else around you has already abandoned. You cannot always control whether your cause ultimately succeeds. You can always control whether you remain genuinely yourself while defending it.